Hello, guys. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, good late night, good early morning, good whatever it is, wherever you are. This is the LSAT Study Buddy, and today I will be answering the question, which law schools should I apply to? Right? I'm not going to say that I'm an expert or I'm a professional in this field, but I'm someone who's asked this question to many different people, and I've compiled basically everything that I've learned into one place, one short video to show you how to do your research and what you should be looking for when you're applying. Now, if this is something you're interested in, it's something you'd want to get more information in, something you want to get notified whenever videos like this go up, please make sure to subscribe. Otherwise, if you like the content, send a like. If you want to say something, feel free to comment. And I live stream every day studying for the LSAT. And if that's something that you have questions about, or just need a study buddy or an accountability buddy or anybody there with you, again, subscribe, turn notifications on, and join me. I study every day, anywhere from an hour to 4 hours a day, sometimes more. So just reach out and let me know and join me. So, with that said, before I dive in, it is January 20th. It's about 9:30 p.m. Eastern time, and I just got a notification that uh, three soldiers, unfortunately, passed away in a helicopter crash just outside of Buffalo, New York, and my condolences are out to them and their family. Um, when servicemen die, it is a tragic day for those that knew them and for those that didn't. And I'd like to thank them for their service, and may their memory remain positive for all who knew them, and may their families grieve successfully. Anyway, back to the question at hand. Which law school should I apply to? Um, Here we go. So, there are a couple basic tenets that you want to look for. Okay, there aren't many, there are a few of them, but you should make sure that you have these thought about and checked off your list. Okay, they are as follows. Once this will go to the next slide. Okay, there we go. The basics. How many should you apply to? Where are they? How are they ranked? What are the LSAT and GPA percentiles? What's the job outlook? And what are the scholarship opportunities? First, and of course, if there's something more specific, right? Let's say you want to go into a specific field of law. Let's say you want to go into entertainment law, right? This will fall under location, but generally, if you want to go into entertainment law, you want to be where that is most prevalent, right? So that would be West Coast. But some schools are better at certain types of law than others, are known to be better at certain types of law than others. And that's something you should definitely check out. That's not something I'm going to go into because that's very specific and niche. And I don't want to go into every type and what the rankings are for every type. So I'm not going to go into that. I'm going to look at general rankings. Anyway, how many should you apply to? This is budget dependent, right? Every school, on average, almost every school, some of them are free, but every school on average costs about $80 to get your application, to take your application and read it. They charge you $80. On top of that, you have the credential assembly service that you have to file for through LSAC. In order to send an application, each application is $45, right? So that's an average of $125 per school. So it's budget dependent. Now, how much is $125? When you think about it in the grand scheme of things, you're about to pay, if you don't get a scholarship, hundreds of thousands of dollars to go to law school. In return, to make hundreds of thousands of dollars per year. Is $125 now worth an extra couple thousand later, or an extra thousand in scholarship, or getting into a better school that you wouldn't have applied to if you didn't, and then having a higher chance at coming out with a 180,000 plus job? I don't know. That's up to you, but it's budget dependent. If you have fee waivers, definitely um, definitely apply to those schools or whatever schools it must be. But basically, how I'd break it down is you should apply to two must get into schools, right? So I have a tier. I have must get into, should get into, and could get into schools. Must get into are what known as safety schools. Okay, you should apply to two of these that you would go to, two of these that you'd be happy to go to. Not that you'd be thrilled to go to, but happy to go to, and that your grades make it so that, or your grades and scores make it that you should, or you kind of have to get in there, right? If you have a 173 LSAT, apply to a 164 75th percentile school or a 164 median percentile school, right? As long as your GPA fits the bill. Those are your must get intos and your softs and technicals and all that. Those are your must get into. Your could get into are those big boys, right? Let's say you have a 172 and a 375, right? These are your shoot your shots. Shoot your shots to three schools. Shoot your shot at a Harvard. If you're at a 154, shoot your shot at I don't know, like a top 30. Just shoot your shot is my point. Something that there's a chance, something that if your personal statement, your diversity statement, any addenda you might have, if everything were to fall perfectly into your lap and it worked beautifully, what schools would you get into? What if everything was 100% 100? What schools would you be able to get into? Those are your could get to schools, right? And then your should is where that fluctuation really exists. I wouldn't say one, I wouldn't say two, I'd say at least three, but it's up to you. I mean, you could blanket 10 of them, right? But again, it's budget dependent and it's how much you want to put in now. You'll make it back later. I promise you, you'll make it back later. And I promise you, it'll be worth it later as long as you do well in law school. You can't spend the money now and then fail out of law school, right? But how much are you willing to put in now? How much can you put in now? Um, and that's the plan. And then figure out how many shoulds you want. I know I want to stay in the Northeast, so that really cuts down my options quite a bit. And I know where I want to go, so again, that cuts my options down a little more. But that's how you should do it. Two safeties, as many I should get in here at one of these at least type of schools, and then your coulds, three reaches. Then location. Where do you want to work, right? Do you want to be on the East Coast? Do you want to be on the West Coast? Do you want to be in New York City? Or do you want to be in like a Boston city or like a like an Atlanta city, right? They're different. They're different naturally. One's like a real city and one's like a mellower city. Or do you want to be on the outskirts? Do you want to be in like UVA in Char I don't want to get this wrong. Charlottesville, Charlottetown, Charlottesville, Charlottesville, Virginia, um, which is outside of, Arlington, just outside of DC and all that. Do you want to be in like a quieter place, a busier place? Where do you want to work, right? Now, that doesn't mean you can't go to an East Coast school and end up working on the West Coast or work at a West or go to school on the West Coast and work on the East Coast. It's just that in terms of networking, you tend to develop a network and interview and all of this in places that are near you. It's part of being in that place. Your career services at your school will be uh, better equipped to help you find a job where you are. That's just how it goes. So definitely keep that in mind. You want to go to school where you want to work. If you don't know where you want to work, do you have a general idea? Do you know, hey, I don't want to be on the West Coast? Then find somewhere on the East Coast, and so on and so forth. But you want to have that general idea. For example, and I'll go into this later. Being in and around DC is incredible for government work. If you want to move into government, and we'll talk about federal loan repayment um, after, but or in a bit. But if you want to go into government, being in and around the DC area is huge, right? If you want to be in New York City, right? A lot of people would say it's better to go to Fordham, which is a lower ranked school, but you're in the city, Fordham Law, than it is to go to um, I don't know, like Boston University, and then find your job in New York because you lack that network. It might be a better school on rankings, but you don't have that network. So again, location is important. Definitely keep it in mind. Next, we have rankings. For those of you that don't know how to find the rankings, I'm going to stop my share and reshare. One second. For those of you that don't know how to find the rankings, you can go right here. So this is the U.S. News and World Report, and it's just 2021 best law school rankings. Number one right now is Yale. Yale is where all the law school professors go. Stanford, and then Harvard are your top three. That I guess it's YSH, but I think it's HYS is how it's commonly known. Then you have Columbia, U Chicago, NYU, UPenn, UVA, Northwestern, UCB, University of Mich, Duke, Cornell, and Georgetown are your top 14. Basically, those are your top two tiers. You have your top three, then you have your top 14, then you have your top 25, and then you have your top 50, is how it's been explained to me. You can go here and you see all the names, you see all the cities, and you see the ranking. Tuition, how many enrolled, and so on and so forth. Now, the reason this matters is because ranking means a lot in law. It means a lot. Your prestige, where you come from, it means so much. And where it means it is in salary. It means it in your chance at making those big bucks coming out of law school. And I'm going to prove that. But before I do, I'm going to show you how to find your LSAT, the school's LSAT and GPA percentages. So what I do is I go to 7Sage, um, 7Sage LSAT and GPA medians. That's all you need to look up. LSAT and GPA medians. It'll take you to this, which is what we're looking for. And here, it's this incredible form that 7Sage put together. Thank you, by the way, 7Sage. It's just 7sage.com/top-law-school-admissions. And it gives you all the schools by rank, their names, their LSAT percentiles, their GPA percentiles, their acceptance rate, and what percent of the people accepted end up going, and some more stuff. That doesn't so much matter. But basically, what the percentiles are is I don't know if you guys remember high school math, but you learned about an IQR. It's called an interquartile range. It's the range between 75th percent and 25th percent of your sample. So let's say you have 120 people, every or 100 people, and everyone is assigned a number between 1 to 100 following the number person they are, meaning person 1 gets the number 1, person 2 gets the number 2, person n gets the number n, all the way to person 100 who gets the number 100. Your 75th percentile will be the 75. The 25th percentile will be the 25. Basically, the lowest 25% will be below the 25th percentile. The top 25% will be above the 75th percentile, and the middle 50% will be in between the two, with the very middle being the 50 percentile, your median. And that's how this works. So for Yale, for example, the top 25% get over a 176 on the LSAT. The lowest 25% at Yale get below a 170. And the median person, meaning the not the average, but the median person, meaning 50% below and 50% above, that number is a 173. In terms of the GPAs operate the same way. Okay. And that's another way to factor in, right? So if you have a 162 LSAT and a 3.6 GPA, you'll get you'll get into a pretty good school, right? But applying to Yale, 8 points under the LSAT and 0.3, 0.2.5 points under the 25th GPA, probably not your best bet. Okay, and you can kind of predict that that way. And Yeah, that's how this works, and I definitely check it out. Now, in terms of job outlook, okay, this is where it gets important to follow along, okay, because I'm going to show you some files and forms, and I'm going to show you how to read them. Because if you don't know how to read them, you'll get stuck. So basically, I'm going to show you two forms. First, I'm going to show you an employment statistics form, and then I'm going to show you a scholarship form, or the ABA 509. I'll explain what that means. So first, this is what you do. Let's say you want to look at Stanford. So you go to Stanford Law, and you want to see their employment statistics. You go to employment statistics, right? You'll find, you'll go in here, graduate employment outcomes. You'll click this JD 2019, the way it shows up over there, and it'll take you to something that either looks like this, which is the way Harvard displays it, just like this, or it'll take you to this form, which is how every other school I have open on my computer displays it. Now, what this is like this. In terms of employment, there are multiple things you can do going out of law school. I mean, you can do everything. You can become a waiter, right? Or you could go for something high, right? Something big, something strong. And in terms of the legal profession and coming out of law school, the most prestigious jobs are what's known as big law firms, 250 attorneys plus, um, or federal clerkships, which is the top level of clerkships, right? Those are your federal circuit court judges, Supreme Court justices, and so on and so forth. And those are the prestige, right? And if you want to look at where the money is in terms, well, not in clerkships, but in terms of money in like on the attorney path, right? That's all going to be in big law. Big law is where you're going to find your 180 plus salaries starting, right? And then you can look at how they escalate. Every law firm has a different pay scale, but generally they escalate pretty quickly. Um, you put in the work. Don't get me wrong, the work is there, but the pay is there also. So how do you find out how likely you are to get some of that? And this is important because if you want to know what your salary prospects are and how much you're willing to invest, you need to know what the percent is for you to get a high paying job coming out of it. So for Harvard, for example, I'm going to show you how to do this. Okay. This is your chart. Employed bar. We're not looking at this. We're looking down here, law firms. Okay. Law firms 251 to 500 and 501 plus. Everyone follows the same format in terms of how to break down these numbers. So for Harvard, for example, over from 251 to 500, they had 21 students end up at those law firms. They had 306 students from their graduating class end up at 500 plus size law firms. Add those two numbers. That is the total that went to big law. Now go down to judicial clerkship, look at federal clerkship. They have excuse me, 106 students. Go to clerking. Add that, and that is your total BLFC, okay? Big Law Federal Clerkship. That is the total number of students in Big Law and Federal Clerkship. Now, you divide that number, which is 433, you divide that by the total number of students found here, 593. And you get 73%. That means 73% of Harvard graduates in 2019 made it to the most prestigious careers and positions in the legal profession. 73%. Meaning it's a good investment because if you're in the top, if you're 73% of the Harvard student body, if you're part of that 73%, you will either start making near $180,000 a year plus, or you will end up in a federal clerkship and pave your way down that path. Next, you look at Georgetown. You're going to do the same thing. You're going to take this 251 500 number, this guy, 37. You're going to take your 501 plus number, this guy, 282, add those. Then you're going to add them to your clerkships federal, which is 37. Excuse me. You're going to get a total of whatever that is. I believe it's 356. You're going to divide that by the total 630, and you should get about 56.5%. So from number 3 to number 14, you go from 73% to 56.5%. Now, that is not entirely true. Now, this is where, and the reason that is that doesn't paint the full picture, because this is where the location comes into play. Georgetown is the number one school in the Washington, D.C. area. What else is in the Washington, D.C. area? Nearly all of, well, not all, not nearly all even, a very, very heavy amount, very, very large amount of public work, whether it be the agencies or policy, NGOs, whatever it might be. And you can see that because their government number, people that go into government, is 74. 74 go to government or end up working in government 10 months out of school. Harvard, their government number was 17 with 593. Georgetown has 630. That's a huge difference. And that's where location comes into play. Now, let's assume that those 74 would have ended up in big law or federal clerkships. What is that? That brings you up to a 68%. That's if all of them, but we can be safe and say maybe 60, 63, 64%. So you go from 73% at Harvard to 63 or 64% at Georgetown. And that's top 14. Right? So top 14 basically says half of you will go on to federal clerkship or big law, making 180 plus a year. And that's where prestige comes in. As you move down the numbers from 1 down to whatever the lowest ranking law school in the country is, your chances of getting that big law or federal clerkship job diminishes. That's why prestige plays such a big factor in law school. Now, we're going to move on. We're going to look at GW. GW, another school located in the DC area. We're going to do the same thing. You're going to add the 251 to 500 plus the 501. So that's 17 plus 26 go big law, plus 12 go federal clerkship, out of a total of 450. And you get roughly 33.5% by the 26 plus 113, right? That's what I said, plus 12. You add that up, you divide by 450, and you get roughly 33.5%. Again, in the DC area. So what's different than all other places? This government number. Government has you at 75. Okay, that's huge. This is a school smaller than Harvard. Smaller than Harvard, that puts out more government workers than Georgetown. Okay? This plays a huge role. If you take all these 75, and you put them into big law or federal clerkship, GW's at 50%. Right? And it works this way. It lowers all the way down from top 3, top 14, top 25, and then you get to the point where you're at top 50, and you're looking at a school like Pepperdine or Pepperdine. I don't know how it's pronounced. It's spelled Pepperdine. Pepperdine. I've heard it both ways. I'm going to call it Pepperdine. So you look at Pepperdine law. Sorry, I opened the wrong one. We'll go over this form. Pepperdine law. You go here. You take the 250, 1 to 500, 4 of them. 16 go 500 plus. Federal clerkships, 3 out of a total graduating class of 162. And you get that only 14.2% end up in big law or federal clerkships. That's very low. Okay. And that's at number 47. That's top 50. So you can see the depreciation of ranking. You can see the depreciation of job outlook moving forward and average salary coming out. Now, some schools, not all, but some schools have something like this. I should get water while I'm doing this much talking. Some schools have something like Georgetown's. Hold on. Some schools have something like this, where they have the first two pages just like everyone else. And then they have this: private and public sector salaries, and people who go to like school funded positions. Anyway, you can see that of the 414 graduates in the private sector, which is your big law and law firms, 77.8 provided salary information. That's 322 out of 414. Between 42,000 and 210,000, that's their range. Median salary out of law school, $190,000 in the private sector. 296 out of the 322 reported salaries are between $160,000 and $210,000 per year, first year. Increases every year as a law school grad, new associate. That is what job outlook means. That if you want the numbers, there you have them. I told you the percentages of how many people enter those jobs, and that's how much they make. People that go public sector, you're looking something like this. And that's government, not-profit, judicial clerkships, and entry into practice, but those aren't included here. So that's that. That's your job outlook. Lastly, we're going to look at scholarships, right? So here we go. To go to scholarships, what do? You come over here, we're going to look at Stanford Law again. Stanford Law, you put in whatever law school you want to check out, and you type there whatever it is, law 509. 509 is going to pull up a form that looks like this. Every school has the same form. It is standard. It is the American Bar Association's form. It looks like this. And here they have the basics. It just says the basics, type of school, application deadline, whatever, academic calendar, whether they do semester or trimester, so on and so forth, when they start, curricular offerings, how big the classes are, how many applications they get, how many offers, how many people accept their offers from the total pool, and whatever, yada, yada. You get the point. LSAT scores, percentiles, GPA GPA percentiles, GRE percentiles for those of you that are taking the GRE, faculty, race distribution, JD degrees by race, 1L tuition, and we get here, and I ran through all that, and this is the only part I'm going to look at for every other school. Grants and scholarships, total number of students at the schools, total number receiving grants, so 49% out of that 100%. Less than half tuition, 31%. Half tuition, 17%. Full tuition, 1%. So that's the top 9. This is Harvard, right? And more than full tuition, another 1%. And then here you can see the 75th percentile, 50th percentile, and 25th percentile grant amount. So you get a general idea of how much money people are getting. At Georgetown, you're going to go to the same thing. Scroll down to that second page, bottom of the second page, grants and scholarships, total number of students, number receiving, 59%, less than half tuition, 37, half tuition, 21, full tuition, 1, more than full tuition, none. And then you have your grant amount. You can do the same for GW. Scroll down to the bottom of the second page. You have the same numbers, and same thing for Pepperdine. They're all the same. You can find your Pepperdine. You can find your numbers, whatever it might be. And that is definitely something that you should take a look at, because finances, of course, some people will say it's a worthy investment. Some people say it's not a worthy investment to go to a school if they don't give you any money, or they only give you some money and you have to take a lot of loans out, but then you're going to make a lot of money, or but you have the potential to make a lot of money. And they're like, well, it's not guaranteed, but it's possible, it's probable, yada yada. You're going to make your own decisions. I'm not going to tell you what to do. Point is, there's money to be made, and this is how you find out what the average scholarship is, or what the median scholarship is, and the percentiles of scholarship are. Now, if you're interested to see what your chances are at getting a scholarship from one of these schools, there's a website that I was shown. It's called lsatdemon.com/scholarships, right? lsatdemon.com/scholarships, where you can put in your cumulative GPA. Let's say you have a 375, and your highest LSAT, let's say you have a 165. URM is whether you're an underrepresented minority. Underrepresented minority is defined as when the school you're applying to has a lower percent of their student body of a certain race than the percent of that race in the country. Meaning, if the United States had a 12%, 12%, if the US was 12% aliens, and the school only had 9% of its student body as aliens, then you'd be an underrepresented minority in that school. That's what URM means. I'm not going to check it off. Let's assume that I'm not an alien and the only races are humans and aliens. So you plug this in, you go down here. Yale, Stanford, Harvard, and Columbia are always need-based. There's no merit. Don't even think, don't ask, that's not how they work. Only need-based. But with a 3.75 and a 165, you see, if you get accepted, what type of scholarships you'd be looking at. That's it. Less than half tuition, scholarship unlikely, half to full tuition, and so on and so forth. And obviously, greater than full tuition, check that out. Look, you have that, go to Northeastern, 67%, and they'll pay you to go to school. Heck, Penn State, let's see, is that the highest one? Penn State will give you greater than full tuition, probably, if you have good softs. I guess it might not even matter. So on and so forth. But definitely check this out. It'll give you a general idea of what scholarships you would be looking at. And that's important, especially if you're prioritizing, finances. So with that, I think that's all I have for you. I'm going to stop my share. I'm going to come back. And that is those are the things that I would look at if I was you when I'm looking to apply to law schools. It's some of the things that I've looked at and I will continue to look at until I'm done with my application cycle. And I'm not even done taking my LSAT. I'm taking my second in February, on the 20th, about a month from now. Now my hair is messed up. Either February 20th, or I might push it back to April, depending on how I feel in about a week or two. So with that, I'm going to wish you the best of luck in your admission cycle. If you enjoyed what you heard, you learned something. If you learned even just a little bit, please comment, subscribe. It means a lot. It'll help this get to more people, and more people are probably asking the same question. And I'm just trying to help. So if you could pass it on, I would be appreciative, and I promise you they would be too. And yeah, that's everything. So have a good night, good afternoon, good evening, good morning, good late night, good early morning, good wee hours, good whatever it is, wherever you are. I hope you learned something, and I'll see you on the next one. This was the LSAT Study Buddy, and we went over how to pick the law schools that are best for you. So I hope you learned a lot, and I'll catch you later.